afternoon. Hi, this is Tom from Inspiration Metalworks, and welcome to weekly shop update number 20. I know it's been a little while since I've had an update out. It's been a couple of weeks. Change scenery, change venue. This is my home office. We'll be doing the next few videos from here, I suspect. Might get into the shop a little bit, but as many of you know, a week ago yesterday I had back surgery. And I had 3 vertebrae in my spine fused and decompressed. So, frankly, I'm happy. I'm up and about. I do have my handy dandy walker for getting around if I need it, but doing okay. So, that's enough about that. Let's talk a little bit about what we can do. I don't want to focus too much on what I can't do right now. I want to focus on what I can do and what I can still contribute to the YouTube community, especially the machining YouTube community, of which I am a member. I recently interacted with another member, Gary. Wow. We're going to edit this out for a second. Okay, so anyways, I have been interacting with Gary Ramsey out of Texas. He is the Turbo Cobra is his username. You may have seen his Mustang or some of his other YouTube projects. He does some amazing YouTube work. If you haven't seen his channel, check it out, Turbo Cobra. He does stop motion video, he does welding, he does machining, auto restoration stuff. Working on a really neat project for a Steadicam for the GoPro, right? Using linear rails. It's really a neat setup. So check his stuff out. But Gary has a need as well, right? They're working on his son's Jeep. They want to put some logos on there, and I offered to burn out the logos for him. I've got all the equipment here. I've got the tools, the space, more time than I know what to do with right now. So what I'll be doing in the next couple of episodes is I'm going to first start with some of the graphics and the design part of things. Gary has an Adobe Illustrator version of the file that I believe he was probably given by whoever did it, because he does not have the license for Illustrator to do things with. And he had a JPEG of the file. And so we're going to work with those 2 files, and we're going to see how we take those files and can do some interesting things with the source formats that he has to get it into engineering formats that we can use in the shop. So we'll start with that. Second thing is to do, and so the next episode that we do will be the actual design process that we're going to do for him. It's great to have a logo. What are you going to put it on? How are you going to use it, right? So we'll go through and we will actually do a couple of different logos, different sizes, scaling. How do we do bolt pattern layouts if we need to do bolt pattern layouts, things like that. And then in the last episode, once I round up some helpers to move metal around for me, because obviously I can't do that, we will go ahead and get the stuff cut. We'll make sure everything's cutting properly, check our cut quality, look at the way that speeds and feeds affect your cut quality, and depending on what you're making, it may or may not make a difference. But we'll look at the speeds and feeds on that, and get these things out to Gary. So Gary doesn't know all this stuff yet, so when he watches this video, he's going to get a little bit of a surprise. But I did talk to him, ask him if it was okay that I use this for content, and I just didn't tell him what I was going to do yet. So anyways, that's the plan. Let's get away from here. I'm going to switch over to the screen, the computer screen, and let's take a look at graphics formats, and why they are important. So, thank you. And now the fun part. Yay! You guys might think that I'm going in slow motion if I weren't talking. But this is my speed right now. Full speed ahead. Alright, let's start out with talking a little bit about Ramsey Customs. So Gary Ramsey is the owner of Ramsey Customs, and he does some really neat work on his
his projects here. He's got this cool old Mustang that they are, he and his son Matt are fixing back up. They had done a restoration on it, and unfortunately, Matt hydroplaned and did some damage to the car, and they've been going through the process of getting it back on the road. That's part of his projects, part of the stuff that caught my attention initially. I, frankly, really enjoy the production value as much as I do the content that he puts in there. Gary puts a lot of effort into his videos, so check it out. This is his page, or his channel here. You can look at his videos. He's got a ton of videos in here, right? I mean, lots of really cool stuff on what he has done. Some of it is on his throwbacks. He did a blog post as he was doing this original renovation of his car, and so he's kind of gone back with those blog posts and turned them into videos too. So that's kind of a neat way to go back and learn about the process of what they did. But you can go through lots of cool stuff. The one project I was just talking about, the do-it-yourself camera slider, right? This is a pretty neat project. I recommend you do that. But he even goes through and he shows you how he does it, like how he does the stop motion parts of it. So cool stuff. Check out Gary's channel if you haven't done so already. I suspect many of you, if you follow me, you probably already know who he is. But if you don't, check him out. So Turbo Cobra, good guy. And as you can kind of see, that's his logo there. Right. So let's switch gears and let's take a look at the logos that we're going to work with today and what we want to do with those logos. So when Randy and I were, when Gary and I were emailing back and forth, I asked him to send me his logos, and he had, let me change view here. Let's look at detail view so you can tell the difference here. He had sent me two files. He sent me this AI file, which is an Adobe Illustrator file, and he sent me a JPEG, right? Both of these, which I don't know if we're actually capturing this or not. Let's bring this down into the size that the window that we're capturing here. Both of these files basically are just his logo that he uses, Ramsey Customs. He knows that with Design Edge and the Plasma Cam, I can actually take something like this and do an import, and it does some pixel examination. It basically compares left to right, and it says, oh, hey, here's white here, here's red here, there must be a line there, right? It works, but that interpolation that it does is not very accurate. So what we really want to work with, and whenever we're doing something that is of a precise nature, we want to make sure that we're working with files that are vector images, right? So these are called raster images, and basically it's just it's hard to explain in basic terms, but raster images are what you would think of as like your photocopier, whereas a vector image, and what we're talking about with vectors, is vectors are basically a point. It uses a coordinate system, right? So imagine that this is a big grid. It's graph paper, right? And it knows, for any given x and y coordinate where the next one is and the next one. So it knows features about what it's supposed to look like, right? And so that means that if I scale things in and out, like this one, this JPEG, when I scale it down, it looks okay, right? But as we start to scale it bigger and bigger, now you guys can start to see. You see how we get that tearing, or what we call pixelation in there? Vector images don't do that, because vector images know precisely where things are supposed to be, regardless of size. They use coordinates, right? So let's go ahead, let's close this one, and let's take a look. An AI file, an Illustrator file, is a vector-based format. However, I don't have a license for Illustrator anymore. I used to. I also used to have a license for CorelDRAW. And what I found was that I just don't use them. I don't do enough of the creative drawing side of things to make sense to either purchase it outright. An Illustrator license, perpetual license is hundreds of maybe even $1,000. Even when you use their monthly subscriptions, it still comes out to be anywhere between $300 and $600 a year for software that I might use once or twice a year. And coordinate-based programs really shouldn't have anything special about them. So when we look at this AI file, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to open this, and I'm going to open it with WordPad, just so you can get an idea. Let me get back over to where I'm recording so we can see it. It's giving us, like, this is saying that it is, an Illustrator tool, right? That's plain text. You guys can read that. But then Adobe doesn't want you to, to be able to take over and not pay for their stuff. So they go through and they add their own little encryption into their format. And so now what should be XY coordinates are a bunch of gibberish, right? Well, it doesn't really help us at all, does it? Well, there's a tool out there called Inkscape. And Inkscape is open source. I'll bring that up here. This is Inkscape. I used Inkscape to do some translation on this. And so let's take a look at what that looks like and how it works. And then we'll show you the difference between what the coordinate system looked like when we were in the AI file and what it looks like in Inkscape. Okay, I have opened up Inkscape. Actually, I want to do one thing here. I'm going to go to Document Properties, which isn't showing up for you here, but I'm going to go to Landscape Mode, just because I know that his script-based logo is in Landscape Mode. And I'm going to, I'm not an expert at Inkscape, okay, guys, just so you know. I know how to use the basics of it, but Inkscape is a very, very powerful tool. There are people who use this to do very beautiful graphics programs. I'm going to use it to basically do some real simple things and to do some image translation. So the first thing we're going to do File, and we're going to Import, and we're going to find that logo, and since I'm looking at it, okay, so here's my AI file that he provided to me, right? So there's the logo, I click open, and let's move this over so we can see. So it can read it. Yeah, I just want to do that. I want it to be very precise. If there is text in there, we want to import that as text, and better images, and we just basically say okay. Now, here it is. There is our file, right? That's it. That's what we're working with. That's the Illustrator part for Ramsey Customs. I can go in here and I can resize, but look what happens. I can do all kinds of crazy stuff with this, which, well, I don't want to do that. I want to keep it exactly the way that it was for when we first had it, right? So what I typically do is I'll take it down in the corner here, hold the Control key down, right? So Control key is held down, grab that corner, and it will scale it proportionally. And I just made it as big as I can fit on this particular thing, just so I can see it. I can zoom in and out, I can do all kinds of stuff. But really what I'm interested in doing at this point is turning this into something I can use in my CAD software. Well, CAD software, well, first and foremost, let's make this vector, right? So it was, we know it's a vector image in Illustrator, but it is a proprietary vector format. If I just click on File, Save, Inkscape is an SVG, for a scalable vector graphics. I'm going to call this something totally new, so I'll say Ramsey Custom Video File, and click Save. All right, so now I have a file that's in a non-proprietary format. But I can go one step further with this. I know that what I use and what most CAD programs use, or CAM programs, when you want to start getting things in to the machining side of things, is they want to use something that they can read. SVG is typically not one of those files. I generally use the DXF format, and that is the Drawing Exchange format. I think is what that stands for. It's basically Autodesk, AutoCAD came up with a format called DXF. It allows you to exchange these drawings between different types of software, right? CAD software. What's nice though is I go to File and we'll click Save As, and Inkscape has all these other formats in here that you might want to use, right? Great ways to do it. If you want to do it as a plotter file, right? Open graphics, a PDF file. I want DXF, right? So I choose DXF. Here it is here, and I'm going to say that I'll just append CAD in here just to give me a little more information, and we'll click Save. It wants to know a little bit more about how this works. Typically, I don't make a change. I just click OK. And we are done. I didn't use Inkscape to do anything special. I didn't make any changes in here. All I did was verify that this looks right. When I first did it, I opened up the original JPEG that I had, compared it. I didn't make any changes. I didn't introduce any changes to it. We're ready to go. So let's stop here. I'm going to connect over to my CAD software now that I use called Design Edge. It's what I use for the Plasma Cam because that's what we'll be using today. You could use AutoCAD, you could use SolidWorks or Onshape or Inventor, or lately I've been using Fusion 360. Lots of different CAD programs, but we're going to focus today on why I went this route rather than just doing the direct import into Design Edge. So let's stop here, and we'll bring you back in Design Edge. Hey, before we go back over to Design Edge, I wanted to point out one other thing. This is that vector format that we did. So basically the only difference we changed here is we went from the Adobe Illustrator vector format to the Inkscape open source vector format, right? The SVG format. And as you can see, you can read all this text, right? But now when we get, sorry about that, UPS beeping at me. Now when we get into the information about the coordinates, it's stuff you can read, right? It tells you that, hey, we're going to go to certain places. We're going to fill it with certain colors, right? It tells you all those X, Y coordinates in here in something that you can read. Now, okay, well, maybe you and I can't read this, easily, but if you know what you're looking at, it's not encrypted, right? Really simple to do. Let's compare this now to the DXF file that we created by Inkscape as well. So let's pull this over here. And again, you can see that it gives you some information. It says that it was created by Inkspace. So a DXF file, doing the exact same thing. It's saying that, hey, here we are, and here's our coordinates that we're doing, from 0, 0, we go up to 10, it's just all your X, Y coordinates, and it gives you a little bit of information about that coordinate. Now, the one thing that we lose when we did this, I didn't tell it to maintain colors or things like that, because frankly, it's not important to me. I need to know cut paths. I need to know where the borders of the actual content are, right? So it goes through and it tells you all those things. Hey, we've got a solid line. Here's a different layer. We're going to do this record and that record. And it tells you nice and cleanly. So if you've ever wondered what these files look like, you can open them up in Notepad and take a look, and it will show you all this information, right? DWG files, I don't think. So the drawing files, I don't think they do that. But the DXF files do. I could be wrong. If somebody wants to comment and correct me on that, please do. I'd rather somebody put the correct information out there than me teach somebody the wrong way. So anyways, that's enough of looking at this. Remember, anytime we're doing a drawing, especially in vector formats, we're really talking about point-to-point kinds of things. It's all in coordinates, and it makes it very simple to do, and it's exactly the same kind of thing you do when you're machining. Okay, so I used Remote Desktop to stay in the nice, comfortable, air-conditioned home office that I'm in and connect out to the garage that has the PlasmaCam controller and computer and stuff in there. So we can use Design Edge while I'm sitting in here all nice and comfy. Great way to do it, by the way, guys. You don't always have to buy secondary licenses for things. Keep that in mind. However, we're here. This is Design Edge. As many of you know, this is the software that comes with the PlasmaCam systems. It actually is a series of, there's PlasmaCam, there's the GoTorch, and there's the Samson series. So this is the software that they sell. It is proprietary to just their systems. That's about the only downside that I have of it. I love Design Edge. I think it's great, especially if you are not a professional CAD person or CAM person, which I am not. I'm learning every day, and I spend quite a bit of time with SolidWorks and Onshape and Fusion 360, and trying to get better and better at my craft. But it's not what I do every day. Right? So there are times that I want to be able to do things quickly and easily. So let's review the way that we would have done this in the past. And it's the way that you saw me do it in the last video when I did the state of North Carolina, right? I came in, I said, File, New, we're going to import. We found the JPEG file, which is, here's the JPEG that Gary sent me. And I said, Open. I have to click the button. There we go. All right, so here it is. Now it's skewed. That's just that they're not doing any scaling here. I know that the white is the background color. You notice white gets selected automatically, right? We really have a two-color graphic here. It makes it much simpler to work with, right? So we say next. It's a solid, so it converts it to black and white. You can spend a lot of time changing these little things in here. Remember that speckling that we saw? The pixelation when we zoom in real big? You can start to play with all these things, try and get the best quality that you want out of it, right? But typically, I would just say next. It does its thing, it scans it in, and there it is. There's Ramsey Customs, right? Well, let's look at what this looks like on a full table. Okay, so it's pretty small, right? Well, let's take it and we'll use the scale function, right? And in scaling, you select your start point and your end point, and then you stretch it to say how big you want it to be. All right, so let's make it 4 foot or something close to 4 foot. So there it is. There's Ramsey Customs doing it that method, the simple and easy method. But if I start to go in and look, let's zoom in, you start to see that there's a lot of little artifacting in here, right? Little artifacts. It's not terrible, but it looks pretty good. And frankly, maybe it is fine. I don't know. But we'll go back and look at our full screen. Now let's do the opposite. We took the time to make this because we had a vector file to begin with. We made a vector file that's in a CAD format. So let's import the DXF file, right? And look at it that way. Here's our DXF file. I notice it's white, meaning that it's a bunch of pieces. Because remember, it's a coordinate-based system. Thing is we just really simple. Let's select the whole thing. And we're going to press the J button, or we can press the link command, right? Join. So there it is. Now, here's that same bit of here. Let's start zooming in. But look at how clean that is. Did I find an artifact? Yep, I found an artifact. We'll delete that. And look at the size of it. So we're in a very high resolution version of this. Let's make this one the same size so we can do some scaling and comparing. That's about the right size. And then we'll move them apart a little bit. Okay, so now let's look at just these things. Here's our two files that we have to look at. And as we look at it, we say, okay, looks okay, but let's examine the E. I'm going to move in on the E, and here's the one that was the CAD file. Nice clean lines. Here's the one that we imported. Softer lines, right? Because it's trying to figure out wherever there is pixelation, it's averaging things, trying to figure out where it's supposed to be. So, point being in all this is while it's really easy to do an import and to take a graphic file, a raster graphic file, and get something usable out of it, it's not always the best way to do it. And if you've got the option of having the more precise way, because remember, each time you do this, each time you modify it, when you start cutting, you're going to lose some of that quality. You want to start with the best quality that you have to begin with, and then if you lose some of that along the way, it's not so bad. It's not like making a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy, so to speak, right? So it may be a little difficult to see for everyone what the difference is, but when I have the option of using an actual CAD file to get started, I will always pick that CAD file, because it's going to be that much better to work with, that much easier to work with. And even though it took me a couple of minutes to do the conversion up front, it probably took me 10 times longer because I was trying to explain it to you than it does to actually to do the work. And then you end up with a better starting quality of your product. So that's it for today. I wanted to thank everyone for sticking with me. I know this might be a little bit of a long video, especially since we didn't do any real machine work today, but this will conclude our first phase of this. Remember, in our next episode, we'll start working with these drawings and figuring out what we're going to make. I think we're going to make some name badges and a couple other things. When we make name badges, we gotta look at things like, hey, that piece is going to fall out. Okay, that'll be one piece, but that's one piece, and that's one piece. How do we connect things? Where do we make the right cuts? Keep the continuity of the message. Sometimes we have to make little alterations in here to keep the continuity of the message while not changing the brand that we're working with. So that'll be next week's video, but for right now, thank you very much for watching. If you liked this video, please like it, share it, let people know. I appreciate all the comments, and many of you who keep in touch on Facebook. I do have a Facebook page. It's Inspiration Metalworks on Facebook, and also Google+. I appreciate all the well wishes, everyone. My recovery is going great, and I will see you next week.
Let's make sure I'm writing it, doing the right name here. Where is my favorite turbo Mustang guy? Come on now. Turbo Cobra. There we go. All right, so Gary Ramsey. We're gonna do a lot of editing. Maybe this will make the blooper reel at the end, just for you, Mike. We'll do a blooper at the end. I'll make sure that I'm saying everybody's names right. Yeah, it's Gary Ramsey.